Hey, thanks for joining today. What I want to talk about is why my website is slow. So I think that's very important to look into this because if you have a website that is very important for your business, like an e-commerce or to generate leads, if your website is slow and takes more than 2 or 3 seconds to load, then you might be losing a lot of customers and a lot of money. So in this video, I want to uncover the 5 top reasons why your website is slow. There's obviously other reasons, but these are the main ones, and I want to show you like what you can do to fix it. I think that's really important. So stay tuned and let's check it out. Okay. Reason number one is using like a slow hosting company. And what I mean a hosting company is wherever your website is hosted. So if we go in Google and we check, let's say, some hosting company like Bluehost, you can also check other companies, but mostly this is the most common one where they offer like a web hosting, and sometimes it's super cheap. So for WordPress, so when we talk about super cheap, it's usually called shared hosting. And what shared hosting means is that they're gonna pack like thousands of websites on the main server to make as much money as they can with the server. So in this case here, you see like $3.91 per month. It's pretty cheap. But you got to keep in mind that cheap would probably equal a low performance, okay? So that's very important. Because what you want to look at on your website is the time it takes for the first load, the first things to come up on screen, essentially. So that's very important. So if we look at this website here, I want to show you, that's my test website. So if we go on the screen and we look at the developer tools with Chrome, and we go into network and we type in the doc here, very important, the document itself. So if we hit refresh, we're gonna see how much time it takes for the first byte to come, what we call time to first byte. So if we look at this and we check at timing, this is my request, you can see it took 1.6 seconds to come. So it takes almost 1.6 seconds for anything to come up on screen here. So that's why you want a good host, because sometimes you might have a host that takes like 4 seconds, 5 seconds, and this is without any caching. So I think that's important to look at. And some of the hosting company I would suggest that are really good for WordPress, especially, we have SiteGround. So I'm just gonna go here, SiteGround, this. And if you look at SiteGround, what I would recommend if you have the money is go for the full plan, because if we check WordPress hosting, you want to go for this plan. The reason it comes with an optimized version of PHP. It comes with like really good caching. So I think that's really good option. Otherwise, Kingsta is amazing as well. Kingsta really good. The pricing is a bit higher, but essentially it's a WordPress dedicated hosting. Really good. The one I would avoid, and the one that usually people recommend, is WP Engine. And it's actually, they have a really good software, to be honest. It's really good. But my experience from managing a lot of websites, it seems that they tend to pack a lot of websites still on the same machine. So the back end of WordPress becomes super slow. Their caching is amazing. But when you go in WordPress and try to edit your website, it can be a bit frustrating. So that's my recommendation. All right, now let's look at number 2, which is non-optimized image. And what I mean by this, I'm going to show you here an example of a post I just created, and I added 2 images, okay? So what I mean non-optimized image, so let's look again with our developer tools. This developer tool is amazing to check how your website is doing, right? It really helps in Chrome. So I'm going to refresh, and I want to check images this time. So let's refresh, let's check images, and we're going to sort them by size. As you can see, I have an image here of 2.5 megabyte. This is actually really big, and you want to avoid this. So this image is super large. And this is super common when you download an image from like Shutterstock or, Unsplash or any other stock picture, because usually it will give you the maximum quality of your picture, because to use it to print or, other projects. But for web, you do not want to have a large image like this, 2.5 megabyte. So what you want to do, you want to optimize those images. So you usually could be a pain. So you can actually, you need to download, open Photoshop, reduce it, or there's program online. But what I would recommend is a image optimization plugin. There's a really good one called Smushit plugin. So that's really good. Smush, lazy load, compress image. So as you upload the image to WordPress, it will actually compress it. Okay, so that's really good. So you don't have to worry about compressing anymore. Another thing that is really good is with SiteGround. So there's a SiteGround optimization. So if you are on SiteGround, it comes with a great plugin that they provide. So if we go to the optimizer, essentially, you can go to media, and essentially you can turn on compression. You can even use WebP image format, which is even better because this is optimized for web. So I highly recommend you turn that on, and you turn on essentially the image compression right there. So as you upload your image, it will compress it, so it won't cause any problem. Because most of the time it will come from background image. If you use like Elementor, you do some cool effect background. It could also come from just image you push in the post, feature image. So really be careful with this. All right, third reason why your website is slow is too many WordPress plugins. So if we go to plugin section here, you can see in my test site, I do have a bunch of plugins installed, and some of these plugins will actually affect the front end. So meaning the website that people will see. Now let's check out this one, Elementor. So if we look at this here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just check the source code right there, and then we're gonna search for Elementor. So you see at the beginning, I'm just gonna scroll up, show you. So you see these things here, these are all kind of CSS, JavaScript that Elementor adds to the page. So that means it's gonna take more time to download initially the page and slow down the experience of the user. So as more plugin you put in on your WordPress website, it's gonna degrade the performance. So that's very important to understand. So in this case, what you wanna do is review your plugin, make sure you only use what you need. If you don't need some plugins, deactivate it, delete them. If a plugin impact performance, you can change it. One really cool thing to understand the impact of your plugin is to use another plugin called Query, Post Query. Give me a second. So right, I lost my thought a little bit here, but it's called Query Monitor. It's a really cool plugin. So what you do, you install it, and I'm gonna show you in a second how this works. So if you want to identify like some bottlenecks or something like that's causing some trouble with on your WordPress website and plugins. So now this is installed, you have this little bar that comes up at the top that will tell you a little bit what's going on with the performance of your website. So I'm just going to go and load the front end here, which is the home page. And I'm going to click here. And then while clicking here, it brings a new window, which is very interesting. So you can see like all the different things. It could be a bit technical, but you can even check the database query by component. So it can tell you which plugin creates all these database queries, because that's important as well. And even like the request, you can check some requests happening, scripts, you know, which plugins load so many scripts. So with this plugin, it's really amazing. You can find what's going on your website. Maybe one plugin is the culprit of slowing down your website, so you can find it this way. Anyway, the summary, like the lesson here, is to really be careful about your WordPress plugin. Only use what you need. All right. Fourth reason for your website to be slow is you're not using any caching. So that's really important, especially with WordPress, because WordPress, as you can see, can be really slow. You have a lot of plugins and everything. So one thing that can really help is using caching. So I'm going to show you here what I have without caching. So I'm gonna essentially, I'm gonna go into my plugins, and I'm gonna deactivate my optimizer, which is my caching plugin. I just want to deactivate it. And I'm gonna show you here. I'm not logged in as a normal user. All right, I'm gonna check the tab again, and what you want to check again is the doc section in the network, and then we're just gonna clear it, and we're gonna refresh. And as you can see, even like 2 seconds to load, 2 seconds to just the first byte. Image are not even loaded, just 2 seconds here. Okay, so this is pretty intense here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna essentially enable this caching plugin. All right, we're gonna go to caching. And this is SiteGround. So there's other caching plugin. I'm going to show you a couple in a second, but this is SiteGround. It comes if you're hosting with SiteGround. I like SiteGround, honestly. I'm not even paid to say that. It's a great company. They have a great product. So you can enable all the caching, the dynamic caching, the file-based caching. So what that means, it will create like a file, like an HTML file. So it doesn't have to load all the PHP essentially. And then you can even use memcache, which is an in-memory caching, meaning all the database query will be cached in memory. I know it's a bit technical, but it's a great thing. So now that is enabled, let's check what are we doing here. I'm going to reload this page here because the first initial load will actually cache, so it might take longer. But then every time someone visits, it will be cached. So let's check it out. Now the timing is 137 milliseconds versus 2 seconds. So you see how much of a difference it makes? So this is really important to have a caching plugin. So other one I suggest you use in terms of plugins for caching, if you don't want to, you're in different nodes, you don't want to pay for it, WP Super Cache. Whoops, my bad. I knew WP Super Cache. This one, really great plugin, super easy configuration. WP Rocket as well, great plugin. This one though, with WP Rocket, it's not in the repository because it's not free. So you gotta actually pay for it. But what I would say, it's totally worth the money if you have it, because they do offer a lot more optimization to even like be better on the Google page speed, because that's another thing I'll talk about. It's a Google page speed. So essentially with Page Cache plugin, it's gonna actually make a huge difference. So one thing you can do also to measure the bottleneck of your website slowness is using Google Page Speed Insight. So you can actually go into like the website, into the page URL, and click Analyze, and it's going to run an analysis on your website speed. And this is actually a good indicator because this is what Google will use in their ranking to determine if you pass some of the check mark that they want you to have in terms of speed, because it will influence some speed. So you see, that's my performance of my website. You can also compare desktop versus mobile. So it's not too bad, but it's not that great. And then you can check, there's some indication, see some rendering resource. So you see the impact of my plugins. This is all the plugins I'm using. So it's adding to the weight of the website. All right, fifth reason, and the last one for this video, is essentially adding external script. And what I mean by this is, let's say use like a CRM, like HubSpot. I'll show you an example here. They're gonna give you like essentially a tracking script that you can install on your website, which is great because actually you can track what your users are doing on your website and see it in HubSpot. So if I want to add this, I'm gonna go probably to, if I use Elementor, I can go to the custom code section here, and I'm gonna add a new code like this. Oops, I'm gonna put it here, and I want to put it like when the body start, and I'll say HubSpot, and I'm adding this. But I could be also like a Google Tag Manager. If you're not familiar with this, it's a place where you can actually put all your script, and it will just load Google Tag Manager on your website, then loading all the script. But by doing this, you're adding a lot more weight to the page load again. So if you have a lot of external script, a lot of tracking, like Facebook Pixel, you have like your HubSpot, you have another tracking, I don't know what you're using, like Hotjar. There's a bunch of things you can use to track and see what your users are doing. But over time, this can accumulate and essentially like have a huge impact on your website, because essentially you're relying on an external website to load the script. So you see the URL here is not your website, it's an external website. So it's gonna actually fetch from that website. So if that website is slow or down or whatever, that can also affect your speed. So what I would recommend in this situation is do a spring cleaning, check the script you have. I would say use Google Tag Manager because it's easier to see all the script you have in Google Tag Manager, and then remove the one you don't need. All right, so I hope this was helpful. This was kind of a top 5 reason. There's a lot more, but these are the main ones you want to focus on to optimize your speed of your website. Thanks so much.